A nigga like me, man, I love the game. I love the hustle, man. I be feeling like one of them ball-playing niggas, you know? Like Bird or Magic or something. Yeah, you know, a nigga got dough. A nigga could leave the league. But if I leave, the fans still gonna love me, man? I get love out here in Harlem, man. I done sold coke on these streets, man. Hash, weed, heroin. As long as niggas is feeling it, a nigga like me can hustle it. That's my gift in life, eh? You know? What? The fuck you laughing at, B?
You, man. Funny, man. You a hustling motherfucker, man. For real, baby. You fucking killing me, man.
Well, you know me, baby.
I'm coming on here to record this video. Basically, black people have been taught to hate capitalism, to hate industry, business, to, you know, and we have a tendency to hate successful people. We do. We demonize our, most, successful individuals within our community. This is easy to see. I mean, all you have to do is look at any, quote unquote woke or conscious video, and the first thing they'll say is any black person that has two nickels to rub together ain't this, ain't that. They don't love their brothers and sisters, this and that, right? Now, there's a certain extent of truth to individuals not having, certain individuals don't have that, that aspect of their, you can just see it, it's clear. But the point I'm trying to make, above all else, is that we live in a capitalistic culture in America. America runs and thrives on the idea that you can make $1. Now, we as black people are the largest segment of consumers. I'm going to say segment, but we are the per capita largest segment of consumers in this country. We spend every dime we make. We sustain a lot of people. In fact, I will go out as far as to say the Korean population of this country would not have the net worth or the average income that they have if it weren't for black people, primarily black women, breaking bread with them. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's difficult for African Americans to patronize, black beauty salons because a lot of them aren't around, or even with the banks. I don't beat people up as much as some people do because black banks, where are they? Most people that are elderly want to go in. People that have two nickels to rub together, usually over 50, they want to be able to go into their bank location and look a person in the face. Well, there aren't that many black banks, so thus the black dollar gets placed in white institutions 9 times out of 10. So we have to be real. Part of imagine if you're 400 pounds, right, and you're a woman. I'm gonna just use this analogy. I've seen girls that are really overweight and obese, but there are guys in their inbox trying to have sex with them. And so just because they have guys in their inbox trying to have sex with them, they have been bought into this lie that they're, top dollar, top quality women. Now, I'm not saying that any woman that's overweight is not, doesn't bring anything to the table, but in the analogy we're talking about, as far as all things being equal, with choose someone 250 pounds, 5'7", or someone 150 pounds, 5'7". All things being equal, same person. Obviously, they'll take the lighter person. And so I think black people have been, we're delusional when it comes to certain things like our, our actual income, our buying power, what we can do with it, because we always brag about our buying power. I'm gonna show you why that's a weakness. Check this video out, and I'll make my commentary in a second. It's about 10 minutes.
Hello, I'm Bob Trout. I've got a story here that I think is big, really big, because it's bound to have a terrific impact on business. I'm talking about a new market, a big new market, millions upon millions of new prospects with $15 billion to spend. That's right, I said $15 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? The surprising thing is that it's a fresh market, still full of opportunities. It grew up so fast, got so big in a hurry, that few of us realize its scope. Now, these days, nobody's likely to pass up chances to sell. And yet right here in our own front yard, there's a neglected market. There's money waiting to be spent. To get the story of this market, to be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, the customers, and the salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story, the story of a new market. Yes, this is the market we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells or Wilson, Smith or Brown or Alexander or Breen. They live in Chicago, in Atlanta or New York, in Detroit, St. Louis, Los Angeles, any one of 1,000 cities and towns. All over the country, families such as this are enjoying new prosperity. They have new interests, new standards of living, a buying power they've never enjoyed before. They're good prospects for practically all types of goods and services. All too often, though, they're overlooked prospects. Why? Because of some good, valid reason? No. They're overlooked because of mistaken ideas, because of out-of-date ideas about how the Negro lives and how he buys. The truth of the matter is that the Negro lives pretty much the same as other folks. He buys pretty much the same way, too. But just the same, a lot of old doubts and opinions keep cropping up over and over again.
I don't like to do business with Negroes. They're drifters. You can't keep track of them.
Yes, although a lot of people think that way, the truth is that 1 out of every 3 Negro families living in cities today owns its own home. That figure comes directly from the United States Bureau of Census.
Maybe so, but Negroes are poor credit risk.
Not more of a credit risk than any other group. Actually, the Negro homebuyer meets his payments faithfully, often more faithfully than other race groups in the same economic level. That's the information we got from people who ought to know, the National Association of Real Estate Boards.
Well, maybe, but I've always heard that Negroes buy shoddy, poor quality merchandise.
No, it's just the other way around. According to leading researchers, in proportion to population and income, Negroes buy more quality products than any other comparable United States group. You see, there are a lot of confused notions about the Negro customer. But when you dig right down and find out about them, they just don't hold water. Negroes own homes. They meet their payments faithfully. They buy good brands of merchandise. So why let a lot of old-fashioned ideas hurt profits? Take a look at the real facts. Here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, some amazing facts and figures about this new market have been uncovered. For a first-hand report, we would like to take you directly to the United States Department of Commerce to hear this story from the Secretary of Commerce himself. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since 1939, it has increased more than the average income of all other Americans. Just take a look at a few figures. An official Department of Commerce report shows that at least 1/3 of the Negroes living in cities earn from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Today, the average Negro wage earner brings home a paycheck 4 times larger than the one he collected in 1939. As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend. Here is a buying power that cannot help but have a tremendous effect on our national economy and on business prosperity in general. When these dollars are spent for a wide range of goods, services, and employment, business everywhere is bound to feel the impact.
This new buying power has resulted in a class Negro market, a profitable, above-average income group of consumers. For example, the nation's largest newspaper and magazine research organization, Daniel Starch and Staff, reports these significant figures. More than 51% of the readers of Ebony magazine have a record player in their homes. Almost 64% own a television set. And almost 78% enjoy the convenience of an electric refrigerator. It is also a fact, and this is from the magazine The Food Field Reporter, that Negroes spend almost $3 billion a year for food alone. Per capita, they buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated, too, because since 1930, enrollment in Negro colleges is up 2,500%. But really, to recognize the importance of this class Negro market, we must realize that something has been happening economically in our country. People are on the move. The population is shifting. The makeup of metropolitan populations today is different than it was just a few short years ago. To give you a better idea of what we mean, we set up several cameras, candid cameras, in a number of shopping locations. Take a look at these shoppers. Notice what a large proportion of them are Negroes. What's the reason? It's simply this. Negro families are moving into the cities where there are more job opportunities. Here they find occupations with more prestige and security, jobs that pay more money. As a result, Negro families today often make up the largest part of Central City consumer prospects. A shoe store in Chicago's Loop, for example, reports that more than 50% of its customers are Negroes. In another case, a drugstore located at a transfer point in a non-Negro neighborhood finds that its Negro customers total 25%. The trend is plain. The new Negro families today are moving into more populated areas, to the cities, where there are more stores, more buying opportunities. Since 1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. In Chicago, by 81%. Houston, Texas, 45%. Philadelphia, 50%. The impact of this new buying force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be #1 without Negro support. A product must have the backing of this big new buying power to be a leader in the field. What do you have to sell? Chewing gum or cars? Toothpaste or transportation? Whatever it is, here are millions of prospects. And these prospects are everywhere. Negro customers can no longer be pigeonholed. They cannot be classified as prospects who trade only in certain stores, certain neighborhoods. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
It's a well-known fact that many Negro customers are influenced by the opinions of others. What their friends may think of a certain item often decides whether or not the sale is made. So remember, the Negro buys quality merchandise. That's the second important point. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer. Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member, you many times sell to all. It's also true that many places of entertainment are still closed to the Negro. So he spends more of his money for the things that are available to him, often for items that are considered luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this. That's why so many of them are taking this direct, sure route of reaching the Negro customer. The vice president of advertising of the Gruen Watch Company, for example, says this.
In many important cities throughout the United States, Negroes are important customers of the credit jeweler. Therefore, it seemed that Ebony magazine would be a very important advertising medium for us. We would say it was very well received, and from our viewpoint, a very successful campaign.
From the Remington Rand Company comes this statement.
Our records show that advertising in Ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
A representative of the Alaga Syrup Company makes this statement.
Because of Alaga's regard for the influence of Ebony in the Negro market, advertising space was doubled. Alaga's long experience in selling to Negroes now takes the most direct route to its best customers, reaching Ebony's 2.5 million audience in every issue.
And here are the statements of still other business leaders.
Yes, many business leaders are discovering the most direct and most efficient way of reaching the new Negro market. Look here at the results of the same advertisement in two different publications, Ebony and another general magazine. You can see that proportionately, more men and women read the ad in Ebony than the one in the other magazine. And they did a better job of remembering it, too. A greater percentage of readers noted, associated, and remembered the ad in Ebony. But now, wait a minute. If the Negro market is so big and easy to reach, why aren't more companies going out after it? Well, often because of the feeling that there's something entirely different, unusual about selling to the Negro. But is it really so different? What do salesmen say? The successful salesmen who do a good job of selling in Negro communities. How do you go about getting the order?
How do I get the order? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't do anything. Anything different, that is. I've been calling on these accounts long enough to know that the Negro just wants to be treated like everybody else. No matter who you're calling on, a little friendliness and courtesy help a lot. But naturally, anybody resents being patronized or talked down to. So I usually call a man Mr. Brown, Mr. Smith, or Mr. whatever his name is, until he tells me to call him by his first name. And of course, I always stick to business. I stay away from talk about race or religion or politics. That goes for talk about Negro celebrities, too. You know, this business about what good prize fighters and singers the Negroes are. Who cares? When a guy's in business, no matter what color his skin is, he's interested in making a living, in making money. That's uppermost in his mind. I guess maybe what I'm saying is that I try to help any way I can, sometimes with displays or ad materials, or an idea once in a while. The important thing is that if it helps push sales for the dealer, it helps push them for me, too.
Handle the Negro account just like any of your others. Don't patronize. Stick to business. Get interested in the account. Pitch in and help any way you can. Sounds like pretty good sales advice. That's the secret of selling the Negro. Well, how about it? What do you think of this new market? It can open new outlets for you and for everybody who sells goods or services. It's still possible to get in on the ground floor when this market is just beginning to grow and to expand. The facts and the figures that we see here are just a small sample of what they promise to be next year and the years after that. Yes, here are men and women with money to spend, and they spend it for exactly the same things as you and I and everyone else. They buy almost every type of product and service that you have to offer, and they can be reached like everyone else through publications that appeal to their interests and desires, that deliver the kind of loyal readership that can be proved both in surveys and in down-to-earth sales. Here is a ready-made market waiting to be asked to buy. Here are millions of customers for what you have to sell. Customers with $15 billion to spend.
Now, as I said, we're delusional because what we do is we'll sit and say, well, we have this much buying power. Like our buying power today, if I'm not mistaken, is way higher. It's over $1 trillion now. So in 50 years, this was filmed in 1954. So in 50, 55, 50, let's say almost 60 years, black people have, I don't know how many times, he said 15 billion net, gross. So I don't know, let's just say a third of that, or back then, let's say a fifth of that because taxes were lower. So a fifth of that $15 billion. So we're talking about maybe what, $3 billion. So we're talking $12 billion of not disposable income after taxes that we would use for bills, whatever. And I'm sure a good, I say about a fourth or fifth of that was even used as discretionary income for shopping, for entertainment, things of that nature. And white individuals see this and they come and attack it. People come into the black community and they're looking to extract as much wealth as they can. They're not putting it back. One of the key things that I noticed about this video was that the politician was saying, hey, we keep track of what's going on and we watch for trends. What they're saying, what they were really saying is speaking in between the lines. Don't believe me, they didn't look at you as equals. See, because you got to understand what was going on in the 1950s. In the 50s, black people were actually aggregating their own funds and doing what it is we said we wanted to do. What we should do today, which is, in that actual buying power. One of the biggest stories I always, tout is the documentary 7 a.m. And I'll try to find a clip of that and put it in here where they talk about the cannibalization of African-American Negro leagues and how the majors just came and just cannibalized, just ate up basically destroyed all of the black baseball teams. Why? Imagine, I'm gonna give you an example. Imagine today if we took LeBron James and all of the best basketball players and we had them playing at HBCUs. And they weren't playing in the NBA. The NBA had to go get other players. But if you want to see LeBron and Kobe and Michael Jordan and all those types of guys, you had to go to Howard University to see a game, or you had to go to Tuskegee, or you had to go to, Fisk, or you had to go to a black, community, black high school. We were playing. Let me tell you something. Those gyms would be filled to capacity. How do I know this? Because all you got to do, there's a show that comes on Oxygen. I think it's Oxygen. Called, I forget the name of that show. It's about this lady. She got a dancing dolls. She's out of Jackson, Mississippi. And what she does is she takes these little girls and she teaches them how to, do these little choreographed routines. And some of the girls, they battle and stuff like that. We know people Bring It. That's the name of it. Bring It. So on Bring It, what her name? I forget her name. Diana. That's her name. What Diana has done is she's found a niche market that only black people deal with. And she's dominating it. And what's going on? So much so she's gotten a network with show with Oxygen. I think they're in probably like the 7th, 8th season. She's done a bunch of seasons. If you have an Amazon Fire Stick, go check it out. But the point I'm trying to make is she dominates her industry. I was home one time, and she came to Montgomery with the Dancing Dolls, and they did a battle. And I just went just to see. I didn't even go in. I just stood at the door. I just wanted to see what was going on. Now, this gymnasium holds about, maybe 1,200 people. When I tell you it was people standing up all by the bleachers, it was blowing. Now, I know people like, well, yeah, but that's the difference. There's a difference in doing that and dominating the whole NBA industry. This industry that she's dealing, this dance battle industry, so to speak, is in its infancy. It really is. We're talking, it's become more popular since that show came out. Now, yes, she worked a network with white executives and things like that, but the thing is, she is in control of that. In her and that guy that always makes the announcement, they the ones that book all the shows. They're making a killing. Now she's going on tour all over the country, all over the world, dancing. Black people can do that if we find other industries that we can control. Now, I know what people will say. Well, when it gets big, white people and Asians and all them going to jump into it too. Yeah, but see, the thing is, the point I'm trying to make is, look, man, you ever been in a fight with a bully? Or you ever went to school and the bully kept taking your lunch money? and one day you stood up to that bully. You might have got your ass whooped, but you stood up to that bully and you gave it all you had. And when you give it all you got, most of the time, that bully might be like, you know what? I mean, I got the best of him, but damn. I mean, this nigga, he slapped 5 from me. He slapped me, he punched me, he kicked me. I mean, I'm in pain. I'm bleeding. I'm going to leave this cat alone. I ain't going to say nothing to him. That's how bullies think. And a lot of times, people, when they come into a community, they go to the path of least resistance. See, a lot of times we're picked on in our communities economically because we don't put up any fight. We don't even try because we don't even write business plans. We don't go after things. And so, you know, people talk about buying power, but I for one think that buying power, and this is my whole premise, buying power is not good unless you aggregate it. If it's not aggregated, it's a weakness. That's like saying, hey, I'm a junkie and, you know, I got power because I smoke more dope than anybody on the block. Like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. No. The guy that has the block, that sells you that dope is the one with all the power. So, I mean, I'm going to tell you something. I'm very optimistic. I think we can fix this. I believe it can be fixed. I believe it just takes a certain mentality. And I don't think we need to have this victim mindset that we're just going to always be at the effect of other communities. Yeah, they're coming up here selling us hair and doing things now. Look, it can be done. One of the biggest things I've always been interested in, for example, is when you go to New York and you go down below Times Square in the lower streets, lower district, you go to Chinatown. There's in Chinatown, what I notice is that most people, when they go to Chinatown, you know, you could go and see the Asians literally hand sewing bags, right? And I'm sitting like, man, but the thing is, you do not see that skill set. Even on YouTube, I don't see too many people where you can actually know how to manufacture shoes or how to know how to manufacture. You don't see too much of that. I've actually done research on it. You know, those skills to make those knockoff handbags. If black people could figure out themselves how to hand stitch their own shoes or bags, what if you could make your own damn Jordans? What if you could make your own Louis Vuitton bags or make your, even if they're fake, it's just small cottage, it's not no big industry. But let's just say black people figured out how to do that. And we could go to the fabric store, go order online and buy from Africa, vertically controlling it with black hands all the way through from start to finish. Or a lot of black people in the South started having farms where they were leather places where they were producing leather. What would that do for black people as far as what we do for the Chinese? Because the Chinese, a lot of what they do is based on selling us, you know, knockoff goods. They basically manufacture stuff. But this information is not easily found. But I don't give a damn. I'm the type of guy, I'll hop in the airplane, go over and learn that, and spend a month in China and learn that skill if that was what I was trying to do. We need to think like that. We need to get our passports. We need to travel. We need to see the world. And we need to get that proprietary information that makes people be able to twist our arms. That's what we need to do. So here is Dr. Claude Anderson. And I really want you to check this out. Listen to what he has to say about it.
And you can't get any fresher fish than that fish that is still swimming and still alive. So that's why we sell to the live fish market. That's about as fresh as you can get. See, a lot of those third world countries, the government is financing and subsidizing a lot of their major industries, in particular the seafood industries. And they have systems like Kairitsu, which means they will underscore or undersupport financially some of the businesses to make sure they're competitive. Everybody's going into a black community and selling something. Nobody is buying anything from black folk out of the black communities. So you got a displacement of your capital. I go into a black community, I can find a China Express restaurant maybe on every other corner. But if I go into Chinatown, I'm not going to find any black businesses in Chinatown. I go into a black community, I can find Burger Kings, McDonald's, anything, all kind of stores that are extracting the money out of the black community and displacing it into another community. But if you go into anybody else, but you're going to go into anybody else's community, you're not going to find any black businesses. That's why you're poor and impoverished. That's why you have a high unemployment problem. And we'll explain this when we sit down and later on discuss group economics. You cannot survive unless you begin to build industries and businesses around your competitive advantages. And why? I say based on competitive advantages. What do I mean by competitive advantages? I mean that black people should look and see you must learn how to dominate in businesses and industries wherever you dominate in population and spending patterns. And right now, I chose seafood. Why? Because blacks eat 3 to 4 times more seafood than whites, and we spend $9 for every dollar whites spend. So we have a competitive advantage in seafood. So consequently, we should be controlling everything in seafood from the bottom to the top, from the production to the retail, or from the boat to the throat in seafood. You should be controlling it. You should have all these levels of businesses where you can provide jobs and business and accumulate wealth for your own people. And if you go into any McDonald's, or not McDonald's, go any Red Lobster, any seafood restaurant, I can guarantee you that maybe about 40-50% of all the people there are going to be blacks, because blacks eat that much seafood. But yet we're not in the industry. I'm one of the fewest in it. That's why I'm raising this feed. But now, since I got a foundation here, what other blacks should be doing is saying we're going to build businesses not to compete and replicate what Anderson has done, but to go to the next level. We're going to go and start building warehouses and distributorships so that he can ship his fish to us. So to answer your question about what do I do with the fish, I should be shipping all my fish now instead of going all just focused strictly on the Asians right now. It should be one of the black distributors, warehouses all over the United States. And then above that, then those blacks in the warehouses distribute, they should be shipping into black retail outlets all over the United States. Black lobster restaurants, black seafood restaurants. You understand what I'm saying? That's where it should be going. But since we don't have a vertical integration, I got a platform, but I got to go into someone else's community and get into another ethnic group or racial group and sell my product to them, because they understand the importance of it and they want to buy clean, healthy food, and they will buy it from us.
For your customers that you distribute to, what percentage would you say are black?
Right now, custom probably 0.
Why is that?
Because they're buying stuff coming in from overseas. They're non-competitive. They're giving their money outside the community. 98% of the black dollars are not going back into the black community, they're going outside. And inside the black community, only 2% is staying into black hands and black businesses inside their own communities.
Have you talked to them about that?
Every one of my books are designed to talk about that. I've been preaching this for 40 years. But again, half of our people don't listen, the other half don't care. You got blacks and visible blacks in the United States in pivotal positions. They don't care. They're totally indifferent. They don't understand the nature of what you're trying to do. They're locked into social issues, social integration. They don't understand capitalism. If I find 3 blacks say, what's the definition of capitalism? They can't tell me. They got a negative attitude about capitalism, even though we live in a capitalist society. Capitalism came into existence because of slavery in the 1500s. And it started in Portugal in about 1504, 1505. And it had a very specific definition. Capitalism means learning how to own and control the land, the business, and the resources, and use other people's labor to enrich yourself and your community. That's capitalism. You want me to repeat that for you again?
Yes.
I want to make sure your listeners understand what it is. Capitalism means learning how to own and control the land, resources, the businesses, and use other people's labor to enrich yourself. That's why slavery worked so effectively. That's capitalism. That's in the 1500s. Now, W.B. Du Bois in 1915 defined it similarly. W.B. Du Bois says capitalism is like having 4 years of corn. You eat, save, and sell, and use the seeds for next year's planting. That's capitalism. Where in there, where you see blacks selling, producing, okay, and using seeds for next year's harvest? Do you see me in either one of those definitions? I mentioned anything about social integration. Did I mention anything about civil rights? Civil rights and social ain't going to help black folk. All they're going to do is it's going to contain them, while other groups go by them at 200 miles an hour. And other groups are going to take over the civil rights movement. And the civil rights movement used to be all black. Now less than 1% of any lawsuits filed, litigation filed in civil rights pertains to black folk. Gays got that now. They're gone with that. You can forget it. You're out of civil rights. Civil rights started in 1865 in response to the Dred Scott decision in 1858, saying no black man has any rights anybody is bound to respect. And so in 1865, the radical Republicans, who were the liberals at that point, came up and said, we got to pass a law that defines something that would counter the Dred Scott decision. They said, and we got all these blacks coming out of slavery, almost 5 million blacks. What do they need? And people like Charles Sumner and Thaddeus and Congressman Benjamin, they said on the floor of the United States Congress, there's only 2 things that a black person can be. He's going to be a slave or he's going to be free. But to be free, he must absolutely minimally must have 40 acres, a mule, and $100. And here we are now, 140 years later, and you haven't had either one of them. You never got the 40 acres and get the mule, never got the $100. Otherwise, they say you can't compete. And that was the 1865 Civil Rights Laws. They did it again in 1866, the Civil Rights Law. They say the same thing. And later on, after it had been vetoed, they overrode President Johnson's vetoes, they made it the 14th Amendment in 1868. And as soon as they made it the 14th Amendment, everybody piled in and says, we're equal just like blacks. There's no difference between us and black folk. There's no difference between us. So some white meat packers down in Louisiana, in your area, filed a court case in 1968 that went to the Supreme Court. And the decision was rendered in 1873. They filed trying to use the 14th Amendment, which is the Civil Rights Laws. And the court says the Civil Rights Laws and the 14th Amendment only pertains to black people. It only pertains to black people. And it said, and it was mandated in the enabling language says that Congress is mandated. And you all know what a mandate is. It says Congress is mandated to use all necessary means and measures to lift the burdens of slavery off the backs of black people. It didn't say off the backs of minorities. It didn't say off the back of poor people, off the back of gays, off the back of women, off the back of illegal immigrants. It says of black folk. Nobody listens, nobody abides by it. And so, and they went into integration with scattered black folks. So now you don't have a groupness, a group self-interest, and we're going into integration. We're the only people in this country that have been pursuing social integration. No other group comes in here and try to pursue social integration. You don't see any Indians, white Indians coming off a reservation saying, we want to integrate. You don't see the Asians saying, we want to integrate. You don't see the Hispanics, we want to integrate. Only black folk. Integration weakens you. You cannot practice group economics. The long and short of my spiel to you now, you cannot practice effectively, competitively, group economics integrated. It can't be done. It's impossible. There's no way I can empower this hand by spreading my fingers. There's no way I can say, well, I spread my fingers, that make it stronger. You got to be absolutely stupid, stuck on stupid to say I can spread my fingers and get stronger. You stick together and play and practice as a group. Racism is a team sport. You play as a group. You cannot play as an individual. And all the people you may interview and talk to, they start talking about what they've done as an individual. It's totally immaterial what they've done as an individual if it does not directly relate and translate into the group. The reason Jews are effective in this society is because they operate as a group. Asians operate as a group. Gays even operate as a group. Women operate as a group. The biggest bank in America is the Women's Bank, National Women's Bank. They operate as a group. Only us, we, black folk, always want to talk about, well, we're not monolithic. Some of us can do this. We got our rights to do anything. You'll never make it.
As you can see, Dr. Claude is once again spitting that venom, like I always. Look, and with all due respect, I'm not being disrespectful. I love Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude is, to me, like probably, if I want to say there's a leader, if I want to say there's someone who I admire and look up to, I mean, I actually met him in person. Awfully nice, really, really passionate, compassionate, and passionate about the plight of his own people. Dr. Claude Anderson, man. I'm not saying that any other person doesn't believe what they're teaching, because of course, I'm sure Dr. Boyce believes what he's teaching and things like that. But you want to talk about somebody that really gets it and really is out here on the front lines for black people, then Dr. Claude Anderson is that guy. Dr. Claude Anderson has sued the federal government because they refused to recognize the treaty I think it's the Treaty of 1866 with the Indian nations and all these different Indian nations. What's happened is they kept giving the Indian nations funds, as you know, as they're different nations. They're not actual Americans, so to speak, technically, but what they exist within our nation, and they've given them money, and for almost 100 and something years. And in that treaty, they're supposed to split that funds with blacks, split those funds with blacks, and they haven't. They've taken all that money, hoarded it, built great casinos, lots of wealth. They're making. I remember in Alabama they were having some issues trying to shut those casinos down. One casino in Whitehall, Alabama, was shut down. Whitehall is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like on the back road, Highway 80, going from Montgomery to Selma, which is where and it was on the right. It was just a little. I mean, it probably was maybe the whole casino was maybe 6,000 square feet, which is small for a casino, believe me. So, they had a stage. So they probably had, let's say, maybe 20,000. Probably big as maybe an old Walmart, not the super Walmart, but maybe the old style, like a grocery store size building. And they had a few dollars. They shut down, and they were shut down for a few months. Then they opened up. Now, take in mind, Lowndes County is all black. I mean, like 85% black. And that's where it is. Lowndes County is in between Montgomery going to Dallas County. In order to go to Montgomery to Selma, you got to go from Montgomery County, Lowndes County, and then Dallas County, which is where Selma is, right? And so when you go through Lowndes County, it's all rural land owned by blacks. A lot of black people out there own a lot of land out there. That's why I said you can come to the South if you're black and really take care, and get land for cheap, because Lowndes County is very cheap. But this is the point I'm trying to make. Although it's 90, 85, I ain't gonna say 85, but it's a high percentage. I don't know the exact, but I know it's over 50. And they were open for 2 days. That casino had been shut down. And in 2 days, the government came, the state officials came in there and walked out. They put this on a news story. They walked out with $600,000 in 2 days. $600,000. Now, the thing is, this casino was not an Indian-owned casino. But that was the Indians trying to crush their competition through getting, because they got Wind Creek Casino and all these different casinos. These are the Creek Indians. And what they're doing is they're getting rid of all their competition by hiring state officials. They're down there in Biloxi. This is like, if you're not from the South and not from down this area, you're not familiar with that. But the Indians basically have a cartel. They want to shut down anybody that gets into the gambling industry. But the thing is, Dr. Claude went and sued the federal government. And actually, this is my thing. Like, for all the celebrities we have, and I'm not one to always pocket watch the celebrities and care about what they do with their money. I'm not. But that's why I can't respect people like T.I. and David Banner and all these guys. I mean, these guys got millions of dollars, and I don't have a problem with you doing what you do with your money. I'm not, because I think I need to do what I need to do with my money. If we took all the black celebrities and hoarded their wealth, we might be able to help one city. Like, that's how bad black people are. Like, we would be better off if most black people took their monies and pulled it and did something with it. But the point I'm trying to make is this: we cannot. I really don't have a lot of respect for a lot of these celebrities, because where are they now? Like, Dr. Claude spent $300,000 of his own money trying to sue the federal government, and he had a case. Like, it was like he didn't go after slavery, which is what I said. Things that the government has done that warrants reparations are so numerous. We don't just need slavery, because they'll pull that down and say everybody wasn't living here when slavery was. So that's what they'll say. So Dr. Claude, went about it another legal way and actually had a substantial case and had them actually at the table negotiating how much they need to give us. The government was. And guess who came and stopped it? Mr. Hope and Change. Yes, we can. The pro-homosexual Barack Obama. That's who came in and stopped black empowerment. See, and one of the biggest problems I have, these guys are still like, these guys are still saying, hey, I wish Barack was in there. Barack stopped Dr. Claude Anderson from negotiating. And this is, look, I'm not just saying this. Dr. Claude spoke on it. Boyce Watkins spoke on it. These are the people that we vote and elect. I'm not saying vote Republican, people. Don't get on me about, well, I ain't vote Republican. They racist. Like, I'm not even getting into that. Because if you understand what real racism is, you understand racism, they all racist if that's the case. Because, I mean, I'm sorry. Every time Barack Obama came around black people, he talked about black men being whack. He would go to Morehouse. He went to Morehouse College and dogged out black men and said that black men need to. I'm like, these are the best and brightest. You sitting here lecturing them on being fathers and drop out and, absenteeism, out of touch. But these are the people that we put in there. But I didn't see the celebrities. I don't see the support. And I told a partner of mine yesterday, I said, man, if I ever get some real money, I'm dedicating my money to the Harvest Institute. I'm going to make a substantial donation to the Harvest Institute. And I'm going to probably start, and really, I would like to probably just start sending a few $100s here and there if I can. Because to me, this is the one guy that's really went to war consistently for black people for decades. Consistently. When he's not like a rapper who, one day he was out here talking about moving dope, now he's woke. And I'm not knocking people because people grow. So I'm not knocking anybody that claims to be woke, so to speak. But at the same time, if you're woke, I mean, why is it Dr. Claude? Dr. Claude said none of the celebrities would help him. He went to them. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. He went to the people who we look up to and the rappers and they didn't cut a check. They didn't do nothing. So when I hear them, because I'm gonna tell you something, man. Being woke right now has become popular. Being conscious is popular right now. It's cool. It doesn't have anything to do with facts. It doesn't. Like, it's just, okay, what's cool? Because if it's all about facts, then some of the stuff they say is pure, garbage. Historically, some of the stuff they say, everybody in history was not black. Everything that's ever been invented was not invented by black people. I don't have that such low self-esteem of African people that I think that everything, I gotta lie and make up a false history. I don't need a false history. We're already a great and powerful people, and we've done a lot, more so than a lot of other races of people on this planet. But I don't need to, make up lies and make everybody that invented anything white, even if, black. I'm not like that. So I want you to watch this video this is the end of the video, but I just want you to see what happens when black people pool their wealth and actually do certain things, and what happens when we don't have this mentality of, and I can't stand Umar Johnson. I really don't like him, but at the end, he's going to make a point, and it's just true. We felt like we had to integrate to prove to white people in sports, because this is going to be about the Negro Leagues. A lot of those black athletes wanted to prove to the white athletes that they were just as good. We all know black athletes are the best athletes on the face of the earth. We don't need to integrate to prove that. We don't need to work in white companies and to prove that we belong alongside them. We don't. And we need to grasp that concept. I didn't mean to make this video that long, but it just kind of fell into it. But I had to make these points, man. Thank you.
No sport in America of the last 100 years became a major international event until black men became a part of it. And this has always frustrated black people because we've always known that while most of the people playing pro sports are black, practically all of the people who own pro sports are white. Since their large paychecks are not controlled by the black community and don't benefit anyone but themselves, we don't even count professional athletes as progress.
Well, somebody asked me one time, said, Dr. Hassan, what would be the impact if people like, wouldn't it hurt black folk if Oprah and Tiger Woods lost their money? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't damage blacks one iota. Black people in general could care less. You know why? They're not connected to the black community. If they got money, they got these billions of dollars, and none of it helped elevating the quality of life for their own people. Because if they lost it, didn't make any difference to black folk. It didn't make any difference when they had it to black folk. Won't make any difference when they lose it.
LeBron James, his marketing, okay? He's a rich young man. But what he's making isn't even half of what the executives of the Miami Heat are making.
Why can't LeBron and the 19 best players just go start their own league? All they have to do is book venues to play in. Everyone pays to see the superstars. So you put 2 superstars on 10 teams and then you put a team together with, they're great players everywhere. But my point is, because for whatever reason, understanding that true wealth is created from owning assets is something that we as a people haven't really grasped very well.
Our athletes and entertainers don't have sizable amounts of wealth. They may own their home, but that's about it. They're not major traders in wealth. Oprah's not a major trader in wealth. Bob Johnson, LeBron, Jay-Z, these folks are not major traders in wealth. They have lots of money, but where's the assets?
But black people did own their own major league sports organization, and the story of the Negro Leagues is as compelling as it is all too familiar.
When we talk about the Negro Leagues, there are actually multiple Negro Leagues that were run by different groups of owners, and they were often rivals with each other. There was the Negro National League, there was the Negro American League, there was the Eastern Colored League, there was the East-West League, there was a Negro Southern League, and there were also what were considered minor league, Negro League minor leagues. And so you had a multiplicity of organizations, individuals that kind of, we talk about now as the Negro Leagues, but they were not at the time as centrally organized and structured as Major League Baseball was.
Philadelphia was a major hub for the Negro Leagues, and many of its founders originated from the same church.
Philadelphia had a very large and active black community. One of its centers was the Mother Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is still an active community church to this day.
Mother Bethel African Episcopal Church is a tale about black empowerment of its own. Mother Bethel was founded by Richard Allen, a slave who bought his own freedom and was converted to Christianity. He had joined St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church, a white church that allowed a then tiny number of blacks to worship with the white members. Allen was asked to begin preaching for their 5 a.m. services, and soon the church had so many new black converts, the building could no longer contain everyone. But St. George's white members refused to tolerate the now large number of blacks and constructed a balcony in the church where the black members were to sit in order to keep them segregated from the white congregants. After a physical altercation where white church trustees attempted to move the black congregants off the main floor where the white members were by force, Richard Allen and the black members of St. George's chose empowerment over integration and started their own church. The church is now an historic landmark that still holds services today. But more than that, it holds the distinction of being the oldest continually black-owned piece of real estate in the United States. And members of the church would take this spirit of empowerment with them to build the Negro Leagues in Philadelphia. Members like Octavius Cotto.
One of the important figures of early baseball, early Philadelphia baseball, early Philadelphia black baseball was a man named Octavius Cato. Octavius Cato was a political campaigner for civil rights in this country in the last part of the 19th century. And he was also one of the founders of the Philadelphia Pythians, which was one of the first organized black teams in Philadelphia. They played for the African American, for what was called then the Colored Championship in the 1880s, and he was eventually murdered on 9th and South Street in downtown Philadelphia during an effort to turn out the black vote in Philadelphia.
It wasn't marching, protesting, and politics that built the Negro Leagues. It was black business, legal and otherwise.
Ed Bolden was a local local businessman. Ed Bolden had a team in the 1920s called the Hilldale Giants. Later on, they were called the Hilldale Daisies. They famously played in the 1925, the first colored, and that's what it was called then, the first colored World Series. One of the most well-known stories is Gus Greenlee, who was the owner of the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Pittsburgh Crawfords were one of the top teams in the 1930s in Major League Baseball. When they opened the 1933 season and the Negro National League, they had, starting on the mound was Satchel Paige, and their catcher was Josh Gibson, who were really the two of the top players in Major League Baseball at the time. I mean, Josh Gibson, they said, was rival Babe Ruth as a home run hitter, and Satchel Paige was one of the greatest pitchers of all time, Major League or Negro League. And that was Gus Greenlee. He was a major organized crime figure in Pittsburgh. Was involved in all aspects, numbers, racketeering, and he owned the team. And it was a great opportunity. Owning the Pittsburgh Crawfords was a really convenient and good way for him to launder money. In 1933, with really the rise of the Negro Leagues, the efforts of Rube Foster in Chicago, Gus Greenlee in Pittsburgh, Composey in Pittsburgh, and the Chicago American Giants in Chicago, the Homestead Grays, who played in both Pittsburgh and D.C. The Negro Leagues really came into their own as an organized and successful business for entertainment, for baseball, and for black enterprise.
Ownership is where all true wealth lies. And because of this, the Negro Leagues were not solely a black enterprise. Because it didn't have to abide by the segregationist white male rules of the National Association of Baseball, Negro baseball opened up historic opportunities for more people than Major League Baseball ever did.
To complicate it more, there was also white ownership in the Negro Leagues, and it also presented an opportunity for other minorities to engage in business. And there were Jewish owners who were active in the Negro Leagues because they were also excluded from Major League Baseball.
Effa Manley was a Jewish female. She and her black husband were owners of the Eagles team in Newark. She ultimately became the first and only woman inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Eddie Gottlieb was part of the South Philadelphia Hebrew Association basketball team. He became a co-owner of the Philadelphia Stars. And long before Major League Baseball, the Negro Leagues were the first to break the color barrier.
You know, the Negro Leagues integrated before they had their first white player, Eddie Kelp, for the Cleveland Buckeyes. He integrated the Negro Leagues in 1946, before the Major Leagues brought up a black player. Under segregation, parallel industries existed. Social clubs, businesses, and then extended to baseball. And so, you know, it's only in the past couple of years that Major League Baseball has its first African-American owner, Magic Johnson and the Dodgers. And as much as we celebrate Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in 1947, it wasn't until the 60s that baseball had its first African-American coach. It wasn't until 1975 that baseball had its first African-American manager in Frank Robinson. And it wasn't until only a couple of years ago that we had the first owner in Magic Johnson. And so what existed under the Negro Leagues was you had a black enterprise and black teams that were run and owned by black owners.
The beginning of the end of the Negro Leagues can be traced back to a specific event on a specific day. October 23rd, 1945. That event had a name. Jackie Robinson.
It was terrible for the Negro Leagues. Integration was terrible for the Negro Leagues. What happened is that when Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson to Robinson's first contract, he had a clause put in there that said that Robinson had no other obligations to any other organization. That was important because Jackie Robinson had been playing for the Kansas City Monarchs. and had a contract with the Kansas City Monarchs. And Major League Baseball is part of a large organization called the National Association. The National Association governs all of professional baseball. It still exists today. And that's what unifies Major League Baseball and minor league baseball and protects and basically governs the transaction of contracts, player contracts.
Because it costs time and money to develop players, one of the chief rules of the National Association is that no team can steal another team's players once that player is under contract, even if that player wants to leave. You have to compensate the team, usually by buying out his contract or trading for other players. But none of the Negro Leagues were part of the National Association, and as such, Major League Baseball argued they were not required to honor contracts players had signed with Negro League teams. Major League Baseball began poaching players from the Negro Leagues with little or no compensation to the teams they were taking them from.
After Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson in late 1945, in early 1946, he went ahead and he signed Roy Campanella, who was playing down in Baltimore. He signed Don Newcomb. So he started signing other great African-American ball players who were playing in the Negro Leagues. Once that happened, Larry Doby came to Cleveland in 1948. Satchel Paige came to Cleveland. And by the early 1950s, they were signing guys like Willie Mays. Willie Mays had played in Birmingham for the Black Barons. Hank Aaron had played in the Negro Leagues. And so there was all this amazing talent who were ready to sign to Major League Baseball. And what Major League Baseball did is basically signed all these players in the Negro Leagues without providing compensation. And the sense in the black press was that nobody wanted to really protest that in public for fear of obstructing the path of these players to Major League Baseball. And what happened was that a lot of Major League teams, the New York Giants were outstanding at this, is that they hired managers and scouts from the Negro Leagues who knew the players and had them scout out the talent. So that's how Willie Mays got to New York and the Giants, was that the Giants had hired scouts who had been in the Negro Leagues to point them towards the best players.
The odds against the Negro Leagues ever truly being a viable entity against an institutional behemoth like the National Association of Baseball were pretty steep. I asked if there was any conceivable scenario under which the Negro Leagues could have survived. The only possible solution would have been black unity.
I think what would have had to have happened is that there would have had to have been a unified front amongst the Negro League team owners and also amongst the players. Because I think it would have been a very difficult, I think in terms of public relations, period, had the Monarchs stepped in and said to Jackie Robinson, no, you can't leave us and go sign with the Dodgers. There would have been a huge backlash against the Monarchs because there's so much inertia and support for integration into Major League Baseball. And that was seen as so much the desired that they would have had to have been a unified front from the players, the owners, and the fan base.
The reason you integrated is because black people, post-traumatic slavery disorder, going back to the antebellum days, have always felt inferior to white people because they conditioned us to believe so. And we couldn't wait to prove to them and to ourselves how equal we were. And so when the opportunity to integrate came, our low racial self-esteem dictated that we vacated what we had and integrate what he had because we had always wanted his acceptance. Negro Leagues, they wanted to prove to the white folk that they were just as good, if not better, to ultimately prove it to themselves. But if I know I'm your equal, I don't have to prove it. If I know I'm your equal, I'm not going to integrate my institutions. I'm not going to shut down my schools, my hospitals, my oil business. I'm going to keep it because I know I'm your equal. But if I'm not sure, I might have to give it a shot just so I can know within myself that the white man is not superior to me, which means integration is just another word for insecurity.
The issue should have never been integration. And that's unforgivable for black leadership in this country to allow people to bamboozle them into debating the issue of social integration. And the best way to explain that to you, I had one fella ask me down in Tallahassee, Florida. I was speaking at the Hilton Hotel. I came off. He said, Dr. Adams, this is a white fella, nice guy though. He said, no, you're just confusing us down here. That's why. He said, we just don't understand. We don't understand. He says, on one hand, we had Martin Luther King promote integration. And we got Malcolm X over here talking about segregation. He said, that's confusing to us. Which end of the stick do y'all want? Do you want integration? Do you want segregation? I said, I don't want either end of the stick. That should never have been the issue. The issue should be aggregation. The aggregation means that I should be able to come together on a plane, whether you got integration over here and you got segregation, I should be able to come on that plane, on that stick, any place I want to, and aggregate. Aggregate means pull my people together, pool all of their resources, their money, their votes, and their power, and their bodies and population to do whatever's best in our group self-interest.
Black people have always been eyewitnesses to American prosperity, but we've never been able to fulfill our potential to replicate the abundance that we've built for others. And I discovered our personal struggle to claim our place as entrepreneurs is not a new one. It's dogged us since before we left the plantations. There were several black millionaires who emerged from Reconstruction, but none more celebrated than one daughter of slaves from Mississippi.